Well, many of the people that I've talked to over the years say, I wish I had known about AgeWise Colorado much sooner because we felt we were lost. And this comes from that sandwich generation, the caregiver generation. It comes from the older adults themselves. It's like people don't know where to start. The other thing that's interesting to me about aging is that when you get to a certain age, somewhere around 60, things start to change in your life, your, physical health and maybe your source of income, what kind of job you're working. And for a lot of blue collar people, I mean, it gets pretty tough for them to work past 60. But the old body kind of gets worn out. And, um, and so nobody gives you a handbook, and says, hey, this is all you have to do. Just read this book and you'll be fine. Um, well, in the first place, most people would never read it anyway. But if they had it. But the other thing is that everyone's aging journey is unique, So what works for one person, it's probably not going to work for another person in every detail. Some things for sure, yeah, those will be good. But other things, it's like and so now here I am. I don't know what to do. Where do I turn? And we give people a safe and reliable place to turn. If only they have to know about us first, of course.
Welcome to the Retire and Renew podcast, where we talk about the emotional, practical, and often unexpected side of retirement. I'm Margaret Zyk, life coach and hypnotherapist. Today's guest is Bob Brocker, founder of AgeWise Colorado. Bob has spent 40 years in the railroad industry, and after retirement, he turned his energy into helping adults and families find safe, reliable resources for aging well. In this conversation, we talk about what inspired Bob to create AgeWise Colorado, why trusted resources matter so much, and the growing needs of older adults and caregivers. So, Bob, welcome to the podcast.
Well, thank you. I'm happy to be here, Margaret.
Excellent. So, you spent 40 years in the railroad industry. So, what was that turning point for you? What made you decide and create a service commitment?
Well, I think it kind of happened when I got tired of traveling in my various roles in the rail industry and as a rail consultant after leaving the railroads. It was pretty constant travel and but a lot of really challenging jobs along the way. So it was always interesting. And then about 16 years ago, a friend here invited me to a board meeting of a very tiny little nonprofit that was located in our neighborhood. It was started by a couple of people in their 80s. So that was an inspiration all by itself. And they had read about this thing called the Village Movement in an AARP magazine and said, we should have one of those here in Denver. And so they just set out to start one. And it had a different name, but it's now called A Little Help. So A Little Help is the only member of the Village Movement that took off, several years ago across the U.S. The only member in Colorado, and one of the leading members, as a matter of fact. So that was how I got involved in, what I always call the aging space. Um, and I joined the board, and I wasn't expecting, but two meetings later, I was the board president. So, and then we hired our first executive director and started to grow the organization with his help. And but one of the things that really rang true for me when I first heard about the whole idea of the village was my own mother, who lived alone back in Indiana where I grew up. And I thought, this would be something really good for her if only it existed, in her area. And
Uh,
and so the more I got into it, the more I decided to just continue to stay with it. And I got involved in a few other aging related nonprofit organizations, including advocacy at the state capitol and the area agencies on aging, which I knew nothing about before. And then decided to start this thing called AgeWise Colorado about 6 years ago, and took some time to get the website designed and built, and and then launched. So we launched almost 5 years ago, and with the whole idea being, hey, we offer a safe and reliable landing spot for people who want to learn about different aspects of their own aging experience and be able to attend educational webinars and also just to find vetted service providers. So that's how we got to where we are right now, and I have a great helper in Barbara Boyer, who's our executive director. Barbara and I spend many hours a week working on this, so um, it's been fun and interesting, and it keeps the old brain engaged as well.
Absolutely. So you kind of saw that there were gaps. I mean, and there's probably gaps in every state in the United States as far as vetted resources. Can you tell me a little bit about your vetting process?
I can tell you a little bit. It is a proprietary process, but uh, we have every service provider that wants to be on our website has to complete an application, and the application uh, requires certain facts. A large part of those are you licensed? Not everybody has to be licensed, but those who are, and then we get their license number and which state agency licenses them, and so we do check all that stuff, and we make sure they're up to date in Secretary of State. And for a lot of those organizations, we have an organization we work with in New York City that does national background checks, so we do those as well.
Hmm.
Um, we're especially careful with any organization who's going to be involved with financial advice or information and or being in a person's home. Um, so, and I think it's just critically important that we do that. And we decided very early on the vetting was really necessary. There are too many resource directors. They're all over the internet, and there are just too many that you just pay them some money and you're there. You go. And in our case, the only thing we require is a $99 one-time vetting fee, and then once that process is complete, um, we can put the profile of that organization up on our website, and we do. So we have almost 1,400 um, service providers on our site now, and a lot of those are government agencies that people probably don't even know exists. And in fact, I know they don't because I asked people when I first got involved with the Area Agency on Aging here in Denver, which is the largest one in Colorado.
Hmm.
What do you know about the triple A's? And I said, yeah, everybody gave me the same answer. Start your car. They fix your flat tire, and so another reason for starting this because these are organizations that have been around for over 50 years, and they're funded by our tax dollars. And I would say 95% of the people don't even know they exist. So, and so we made sure right away that was one of the first things we did was list all 16 area agencies on aging in Colorado on our website.
Okay. And then how does you get the education or the word out to the possible user to connect the two?
Well, that's the hard part, and there are senior fairs, of course. Every state has them, and we have plenty here. We usually get a table at one of those. We have a card that we hand out. The card looks like this. So it shows, the sandwich generation in the middle, and on the
Yep.
back, a few examples of what some of the services are on our site. And um, so we hand those out. We do social media marketing. We're about to enter into an agreement with a marketing firm to really up our exposure in that area. And because we've been involved in this area for a long time, we know a lot of people. So we have an opportunity to talk to folks about what we do, and we get invited to be on programs like this one. Last week, I was on one of the local TV stations, and they have a morning program, and
Mm-hmm.
so we've done that a few times, and one of the other TV stations, we've done radio interviews, and so all of those things cumulatively help a lot.
Got it. So you mentioned like government agencies that people might not have known about, but from your perspective, like what do you think are some of the other bigger challenges that older adults are facing that they may need help with resources being on their own?
Well, many of the people that I've talked to over the years and that Barbara Boyer has talked to will say, "I wish I had known about AgeWise Colorado much sooner because we felt, we were lost." And this comes from that sandwich generation, the caregiver generation. It comes from the older adults themselves. It's like people don't know where to start. Uh, and the other thing that's interesting to me about aging is that when you get to a certain age, somewhere around 60, things start to change in your life. Your, physical health and maybe your source of income, what kind of job you're working. And for a lot of blue collar people, I mean, it gets pretty tough for them to work past 60. But the old body kind of gets worn out. And, um, and so nobody gives you a handbook, and says, "Hey, this is all you have to do. Just read this book and you'll be fine." Um, well, in the first place, most people would never read it anyway. But if they had it, but the other thing is that everyone's aging journey is unique. So what works for one person, it's probably not going to work for another person in every detail. Some things for sure, yeah, those will be good. But other things, it's like and so now here I am. I don't know what to do. Where do I turn? And we give people a safe and reliable place to turn. If only they have to know about us first, of course. But yes, so that's how I would answer that question.
Got it. So tell me, you mentioned the sandwich generation a couple times, where adult children who are, helping take care of their parents while they're juggling work and family themselves.
Mhm.
What would you say to those, like the caregivers of the older generation, like
Um,
for resources?
I, well, I would just say that don't panic. Find find us. And use what we have. One of the things that I notice when I look at the analytics of what are people looking at when they come to our website, um, a lot of it is the informational articles that we have. We have probably over 500 articles on a very wide variety of topics. And then we do educational webinars every month, and we record those, and those go on our YouTube channel. They end up on our website as well. And
Huh.
so I would encourage people to become informed. I mean, first and foremost. Um, and so that there's some sense of preparation, because if you wait until you need something, then that's super stressful. Um, so if you can do a little more preparation, you'll be a lot better off. And the other thing is, whatever you learn as a sandwich generation person, whatever you learn that's going to help your older family members or older friends, is going to help you eventually. So um, all of those things help. So I tell everyone, prepare, please, just prepare, because
Interesting. What would
if
be something like just been preparing as far as knowing the resources, like knowing where to get the resources?
yes.
Uh, got it.
Yes, and preparing financially and physically, meant all of those things, because one of our board members and a good friend here is his name is Dr. Eric Chess, and and Eric was a practicing physician, an internist,
Hmm.
and one of the things that he noticed, and he's told me this many times, is that people's financial health is very much tied to their physical and mental health. And so he set out on a journey, at the University of Denver, to create some better financial education tools, and also formed an organization to help with fraud and scams, bringing in, financial firms and some of the state agencies and other organizations that help people when they do get scammed to have a better understanding of recognizing when those things are coming and avoid falling into those traps, which anyone can fall into. From somebody with a super high IQ, it doesn't matter. All you have to do is not pay attention one time, and and you go down a rabbit hole that's pretty hard to get out of. So
Got
yeah,
it.
yeah.
Yeah. It is interesting because when I work with people as far as that are navigating retirement,
Mhm.
oftentimes I get the statement of like, it's not going like I planned. Like
Yeah.
whether that be a diagnosis or whether that be taking care of aging parents,
Mhm.
where oftentimes people fantasize about retirement as far as like I'm going to travel and I'm going to do nothing. And then they find themselves with responsibility and maybe like your words as far as just of encouragement of like planning and as things start to happen, researching is a great takeaway.
Yes, I think planning your life is probably a little overrated. It's um, preparing is a different tool than planning. Some planning is good. I mean, financial planning is obviously a very good idea. And you want to start that when you're young, if you can. Um,
Hmm.
but but being prepared for what life throws at you, that's the part that I really would emphasize is, um, because you never know what's going to happen. Um, there's that old saying, man plans and God laughs, well, it's kind of like that. Um, you can prepare, to be surprised, you know, and then have some idea what to do when you are surprised. So,
Got it. And starting such an organization, I'm going to take this back to planning and preparing because the last point would be resilience because you probably have learned a lot spearheading it as far as to be one of the nation's, leading examples of this. Tell me about the resilience of like trying new things and having that growth mindset of whereas many people get stuck in like, I'm not going to grow anymore because I'm done. How do you personally kind of take on that challenge of continuously trying to move forward?
it I hate to say it quite this way, but I mean but it's true. I mean, this has been my life, really, um, because of the work that I did in the past, and having to start up a couple of organizations that were inside a much bigger organization, but it's kind of the same process. You okay, what do we want to do here, and what are the resources and that we need, the information that we need, and the resilience, is absolutely, you just have to be resilient, because if you don't, you might as well not even start. Things don't go as quickly as you'd like for them to go. Yeah, I do occasionally get a little discouraged. Well, we really should be able to do these things right now, but we just don't have the resources. And I know we don't have them. And then you start thinking, well, okay, so how do we do this differently so that we can work within the resources that we have? And I think that it's just a mindset that says, you've decided you're going to do this and you're not going to give up. Because if you say, well, it's okay to give up, then you probably will give up.
That is true. Well, you get more of what you focus on, I think. So that was a
Yeah. And
psychology saying that I remember from a long time ago.
Mhm.
As we talk about the resources and connecting people with resources out there, if you can speak a little bit about volunteering, and because many people say like when I'm retired and when I get older, I want to volunteer or I want to put my time and efforts into something. Can you speak on like the whole concept of volunteering, especially as you get later on in life, or as you're preparing for retirement?
um, sure. I think a lot of people have a misconception about volunteering, and the misconception being, well, if I put my name in, then I'm going to have to show up and do something, every day or whatever, one day a week, whatever it is, and I don't want to be tied down like that. And so, but I think if you just give it a shot, you might find out that it's something that you really like and you want to do it even more. Or you find out, well, this is not for me. I don't like that particular kind of work. Um, but Here's something else. And I think also too often people get in this mindset of, well, I'm a lawyer, I'm a plumber, whatever it is, whatever your occupation was when you were working, and you forget all the skills and experiences that went along with that that made you successful in what you were doing. And I think it's just so important for us all to reflect on what are the skills and the experiences that I have that I can bring to this role as a volunteer without without thinking I am my occupation, because you're not your occupation. You are this person who had this experience in this occupation. And so those experiences that you picked up along the way and the skills that you have, I just think too often they're just forgotten or dismissed. It's
So even
you
yeah,
go
there's the hard skills of what you do maybe, and then there's the soft skills of what you learn and how to relate
right.
to people and different
Yes.
things that could have take on a whole different life of its own.
Yeah. I mean, you're going to have, by the time you retire, you're probably got 40, 50 years of experiences. And as you said, dealing with other people and in different ways. And you've learned some things. You can be in a situation with some other people and you recognize certain behaviors that um, are either really good or not so great, somewhere in between, of course. But, it's that recognition and that you have that you didn't have, 20 years ago.
Yeah, got it. So in preparation for this, you and I were talking about statistics, and I think we threw out that between 2020 and 2030, population 65 and over was going to grow 40%. Is that what we
Here,
talked?
here in Colorado, yeah, the 65 plus population, it's growing very fast. Some other states are growing as fast as we are. And the differences between states are probably not that great anyway. The key statistic, you used to hear that, 10,000 people are turning 65 every day. Well, that number is now 11,400 people turning 65 every day in the United States. And so, and the other term that I just absolutely hate, silver tsunami. You know, demographics are not tsunami events. They move very slowly, year after year. You can see what's coming. It's not a surprise.
Right.
It's only a surprise if you're not paying attention. And and it's a nice headline, if you're writing something for a newspaper, but it doesn't. It just doesn't ring true. It's not what it is. You know, in a tsunami, you either get a few hours notice or none.
Right, and we have plenty of notice as far as and so given this continued growth of the 65 and older population, like, what would you hope that AgeWise California, like, how would you hope that it continues and continues to grow and connect people to help and using resources and staying engaged? How do you see the future of this? The
Well, I
con
think the future is pretty solid because, we have the boomer generation, which is driving all this, 65 plus. And then you have the smaller X generation. And then you have this millennial generation, which is bigger than the boomer generation. So think about that now, because in 20 years, 25 years, those people are going to be where we are right now. So, um, they need to prepare and be aware. So I think the fact that we have this thing called AgeWise Colorado is a very good thing, not only for the older adults today and their adult children, but for the children of those adult children. Um, is
Yeah.
the future is of the future of demographics is easily predictable. So it's just numbers.
Yeah, and if we looked at the 90-year-olds now, people are living longer. So that sandwich generation that you talked about is probably going to just continue to grow.
Well, it is, and then the other thing that's true now, and I think it probably will continue to be true, is that the fastest growing demographic right now is 75 plus, um, because people, as you said, people are living longer, and and hopefully healthier as time goes on. Um, so there's so many social supports and organizations and what society has expectations for. And there's all this focus on youth right now. Um, but that youth will eventually look like me. So, it's going to happen.
So maybe the last question as we kind of wrap it up. You talked a little bit about mindset and about preparing. Sometimes the older generation tends to like shun advances and I'm going to go with the AI a little bit here, right?
Sure.
Cuz part of this is like, AI is coming, but we still had corded phones that our moms
Yeah.
had from the wall, right? And now we're all on iPhones. So it's kind of like from the horse and buggy to the car. At some point, the evolution of what's happening. Can you say something to the listeners or people that are in that aging demographic that go, well, I'm afraid of AI, or I don't want to use AI because I'm not sure if I'll get scammed. Um, However, that more resources and quicker technology is happening and probably will happen in the next 5 to 7 years.
Sure. Well, I think what we're talking here is change. And yes, people resist change. It's kind of a thing. But I would just encourage people to embrace change because it's going to happen whether you embrace it or not. And so and challenge yourself to learn more about some of this technology. The AI is one thing. And I read stuff about AI every day, and it either it's either very frightening or it's very encouraging. It just depends how it's being used. But we're not, unless you're in the technology industry, we're in no position to have to be able to predict what's going to happen with that technology. And AI is also going to enable some things to happen that will be really good for all of us and for older adults in particular. There are one of the biggest issues with the older adult generation is isolation. Um, so many people now live alone, I forget the exact number, but it's a pretty high percentage of people over 65 who live alone. And socialization is critically important to your physical and mental well-being. And so tools like these companion robots that you may have heard about,
Uh,
um, they give that a person who lives alone a companion, and you can carry on a conversation with this thing. There was a big article in the New York Times just 2 or 3 weeks ago in the Sunday edition about this one called LEQ. And, it sits on a table, it has a little head. And
uh,
there was this woman who was in her 80s, I think, maybe 90s even, who was gradually introduced to this until she got to the point where it was her friend. And you cannot take this away from me. So those kinds of things are going to continue to get better and less costly and much more widely available. So they'll help. Um, so I've always looked at technology as something that you have to, you learn about it as much as you can, figure out how to use it to make things work better and do those things. Being
and
afraid of it doesn't help. So
Well, and that's a good mindset. You can decide how you want to think about whatever it is, whether it's technology, whether it's preparation for a health challenge, and you might be able to navigate the world better.
yeah. Well, it reminds me of I don't know who said this, but some smart person, yeah. As you think, so you become. It's all about what's going on between your ears here, and you get to decide. But
Yeah,
you know, I just don't be afraid. It's that doesn't help.
got it. So, Bob, thank you so much for being here today. We had a good conversation about exploring research, the difference between planning and preparation. I thought that was a really great point that you made. Talking a little bit about the sandwich generation and how everyone's getting older and they're eventually going to be, the older population that someone else is going to be taking care of. And to be able to really help is available and that resources are available, but you still have to be able to connect to them and figure out how that is. And so staying sharp and staying inquisitive about how you build those resources is a really great lesson. It's kind of growing in this season of life. I so enjoyed the episode. Do you want to share how to get in touch with the website?
It's just www, of course, .agewisecolorado.org. And our phone number is 720-295-0163. It's a recorded line, but we do check the recordings every day. And I say we, Barbara does that. So
Okay.
the big we. We'd love to hear from you. And I don't know of other organizations like ours in other states. I'd have to think that some exist. I just don't know where or what they're called. Um, but if anybody wants to talk about, how you start something like this, or compare notes, if you've already started, that's fine too. We'd be happy to talk to you.
Excellent. So, just to the viewers, if you enjoyed the episode, be sure to subscribe and share it with somebody who may need resources or may be looking for some information that Bob has shared. But until next time, remember retirement is not the end of your purpose, it's the opportunity to renew it. So, see you next episode. Thank you.
Very good.